I was 16 this summer. My cousin Emma came to live with us. My parents had just come back from a heartbreaking funeral trip to Michigan. Emma's parents, my mom's sister and her husband, had died in a tragic car accident on their way back from a wedding. It was sudden, shocking, devastating. The kind of news that slices through a family like a blade. One phone call, and everything changed. I still remember the exact moment I found out. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, eating leftover pizza, and scrolling through Instagram when my mom walked in with red eyes and whispered, "Sweetheart, Emma's parents didn't make it." My heart dropped. Emma and I were only a few months apart in age. We'd grown up seeing each other during holidays, birthdays, and family reunions. She was always the quiet, artsy one, while I was the talkative overachiever. We were different, but there was still this bond between us, like cousins often have. Familiar, comforting, but distant enough to leave room for mystery. When my parents told me she'd be moving in with us, I didn't hesitate. "Of course," I said. "She's family." I meant it. I truly did. The day she arrived, she looked like a ghost. Her eyes were swollen, her hands clenched tightly around the strap of her suitcase, and her voice was barely a whisper. My mom hugged her tightly, my dad helped with her bags, and I gave her the warmest smile I could muster. "Hey," I said gently. "I'm really glad you're here." She nodded, trying to smile back, but it was clear she was drowning in grief. And for the first few weeks, I did everything I could to help her feel like this was home. I gave her the bigger closet in our shared room. I let her use my makeup, my clothes, even my laptop when hers was acting up. I introduced her to my friends, helped her catch up on schoolwork, and made her feel included in everything. She didn't say much, but when she did, it was always soft and sweet. "Thank you, Ava. You're so kind." Or, "I don't know what I'd do without you." It felt good, honestly, to be that person for someone. I wasn't just a cousin. I was her safe space. Pranker. But slowly, things started to change. It began subtly. Little comments here and there. "Wow, Ava, your friends are so cool. I've never had friends like that." Or, "You and Tyler are really cute together. But doesn't he flirt with other girls sometimes?" I brushed it off. I told myself she was still grieving, still adjusting. Maybe she just didn't know how to communicate properly yet. Trauma messes with people, right? But then, things started disappearing. My favorite hoodie. A gold bracelet my grandma gave me. My limited edition sneakers. I'd find them in Emma's laundry pile or on her side of the dresser. "Oh, I thought you said I could borrow it," she'd say, laughing nervously. "I'm so sorry." At school, I noticed she started hanging around my friends even when I wasn't with them. I'd walk into the cafeteria and find her already sitting at our table, deep in conversation with my best friend, Jordan. I didn't mind, at first. I wanted her to feel included. But there was something strange in the way she looked at me when I walked up. Like she was proud of something I didn't yet understand. Then came the night of the winter formal. Tyler, my boyfriend of a year and a half, had been acting weird. Distant. I figured maybe it was stress or school or just teenage relationship stuff. But the night before the dance, I was getting ready in the bathroom when I heard Emma on the phone in our room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the door was cracked open. She laughed softly and said, "No, she doesn't suspect anything." I froze. There was a pause. "Yeah, it'll be our little secret." My stomach twisted. I barged in. "Emma, who were you talking to?" She jumped, dropped her phone, and scrambled to pick it up. "No one," she said quickly. "Just a friend from back home." I didn't believe her. Something felt wrong. But I didn't have proof, and accusing someone who had just lost their parents? That felt cruel. So I let it go. For now. At the dance, Tyler was cold. Barely spoke to me. Didn't even want to take pictures. I saw Emma across the room, laughing with Jordan and Tyler's best friend, Lucas. She looked beautiful. She wore my red dress. She didn't ask. She just wore it. And that night, when I got home early, alone, I found her texting someone under the covers. The name on her screen? Tyler. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell or cry. I just turned and walked away. But something shifted inside me that night. A crack formed. And over the next few months, that crack would grow into something bigger. Something darker. I had opened my home, my heart, my life to Emma. And she was starting to take it all from me, piece by piece. After the night of winter formal, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't pretend Emma was just grieving anymore. I had no hard proof, but something inside me, the part of me that had once welcomed her like a sister, was now screaming that something wasn't right. The next few weeks felt like watching my life fall out of my hands in slow motion. First, it was Tyler. He started making excuses not to hang out. Said he was busy with school, but I'd see him tagging photos on Instagram from group hangouts where Emma always seemed to be present. One day, I worked up the courage to ask him what was going on. We were sitting in his car, parked outside the smoothie place we always used to go to after school. He stared at the steering wheel for a long time before finally saying, "I think we've grown apart, Ava. I'm just not feeling it anymore." I blinked. "Is this about Emma?" His jaw clenched. "What? No, of course not. That's messed up, Ava." But the way he said it was too defensive, too practiced. 2 days later, Emma came into our room humming and smiling like she hadn't just watched me get dumped. I was sitting on my bed, heart aching, mascara smudged, and she had the nerve to say, "You okay?" I didn't answer. She shrugged and said, "Breakups suck. But hey, maybe it's for the best." That's when I knew. She wanted this. She wanted Tyler. But it didn't stop there. I started noticing my friends acting weird too, especially Jordan. She and I had been best friends since middle school. We'd survived awkward braces, breakups, and mean girls together. But now, she barely texted. Whenever I tried to make plans, she was busy. Meanwhile, Emma's Instagram stories were full of group selfies, movie nights, and mall trips with my friends. I confronted Jordan in the school hallway one day, desperate and confused. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are we good?" She looked guilty. "Yeah, I've just been busy. And Emma's been needing people around. She's, going through stuff." "Right," I said coldly. "And apparently, she's going through it with all my friends." Jordan sighed. "Ava, come on. She's not stealing your friends. She's fun to be around." That stung more than I expected. Because for years, I was the fun one. I was the one who brought people together. And now, it felt like I was the outsider in my own life. The final straw came during spring semester when I applied for the Merit Scholars Leadership Grant, a full-ride college scholarship I'd been working towards since sophomore year. I had perfect grades, extracurriculars, community service, glowing teacher recommendations. It was my dream. My future. I poured everything into that application. Late nights editing essays, gathering documents, double-checking deadlines. My counselor told me I had a great shot, maybe even the best shot. But one day in late April, my parents called me into the living room with big smiles on their faces. "You're never going to believe this," my mom beamed. "Emma got nominated for the Merit Scholars too." I froze. "What?" I asked. "She applied?" Emma walked in, trying to look humble, but her eyes sparkled. "Yeah, I didn't think I had a chance. But I guess someone believed in me." I couldn't believe it. I knew the scholarship committee only gave out one spot per school district. And now, she was my competition. I didn't even know she was applying. She never asked for help. Never told me. I tried to swallow the jealousy rising in my throat, but it was bitter. That night, I looked at her across our shared room and said, "Why didn't you tell me you were applying?" She looked up from her phone. "I didn't think it mattered. You're the smart one." You'll probably get it anyway. There was something in her tone. Something sharp beneath the sugar. Like she already knew how this would play out. But I wasn't going to go down without a fight. I worked harder than ever. Rehearsed interviews. Updated resumes. Polished essays. My teachers and counselor were still rooting for me. But every time I walked into the office, there was Emma, charming everyone with her soft voice and tragic backstory. I wasn't trying to be heartless. I knew she had been through hell. But this felt like theft. Not of clothes or boyfriends or friends, but of my identity. My goals. My future. Still, I tried to play nice. I smiled when she brought home new clothes my mom bought her. I congratulated her when she got accepted into the same colleges as me. I even let it slide when I caught her wearing the necklace Tyler gave me for my birthday. But the closer we got to graduation, the more it felt like she was erasing me. And worst of all, my parents were blind to it. They adored her, treated her like a second daughter. In some ways, maybe even better than they treated me. My mom called her brave. My dad said she was resilient. They couldn't see that the girl they were praising was slowly cutting me out of my own life. Until one day, I saw something I wasn't meant to see. I was in the guidance office, turning in a form, when I passed by the copy machine room. The door was cracked open. Inside, I saw Emma, alone, holding a folder that looked eerily familiar. She was scanning my essay, the same one I had submitted for the Merit Scholars. I didn't confront her. Not yet. But I took pictures. Of her with the folder. Of the document being scanned. I emailed them to myself with the subject line, evidence. Because deep down, I knew where this was going. She wanted my friends, my boyfriend, my parents' love, and now she wanted my scholarship. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. I didn't sleep much after I caught Emma copying my essay. I stared at the ceiling that night, my heart racing, 1,000 thoughts colliding in my brain. I wanted to believe there was a mistake, that maybe she was just referencing it, maybe borrowing a line or two. But deep down, I knew. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. A strategy. She came into my life broken, and I wrapped her in warmth. I gave her a family, a room, a life. And she used every bit of it to build a mirror version of me, one where she replaced me entirely. The next few days at school were tense. I kept my distance, smiled when necessary, played along like everything was normal. But behind the scenes, I was gathering more. I started checking the shared school laptop we used at home when she forgot to log out. I know it sounds shady, but at that point, I didn't care. I found drafts of her scholarship essays, and large portions of them matched mine, word for word. Paragraphs lifted directly. My voice, my story, twisted slightly to make it hers. She even changed small personal details to mimic my achievements, leadership roles I held, clubs I founded, community work I had done for years. All of it, now part of her narrative. I took screenshots, saved the files, created a folder on my computer labeled Proof Emma with timestamps and everything. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I knew how that would go. They'd accuse me of being cruel. She's been through so much, Ava, they'd say. Don't turn this into a competition. They didn't want to see the Emma I saw. At school, people treated her like this tragic phoenix rising from ashes. Everyone loved her. Teachers, students, even administrators. Her grief made her glow in their eyes. And me? I was just the girl who was suddenly distant. The girl who used to smile more. The girl who looked bitter, even though she was the one being betrayed. Then came the Scholarship Awards Assembly. The auditorium was packed. Seniors in caps and gowns. Parents with cameras. Teachers dressed up and proud. It was one of those moments we'd all dreamed about. Validation, celebration, the beginning of our futures. They started announcing local scholarships. Then department awards. And finally, the biggest one. The Merit Scholars Leadership Grant. The scholarship that would decide where I went to college, how much debt I'd carry, and whether years of effort would finally pay off. The principal stepped up to the mic, smiled, and began her speech. This year, we had many amazing applicants. It was a difficult choice, but one candidate's resilience, academic excellence, and inspiring story stood out. My heart pounded. Please, please let it be me. Please give a round of applause for this year's Merit Scholar recipient, Emma Lane. The room exploded with cheers. I froze. My ears rang. Emma stood, feigning surprise. One hand to her chest, the other reaching for the scholarship certificate. She hugged the principal, smiled for the cameras, and I sat there, clapping woodenly, the betrayal sinking in like ice water in my veins. When I got home, I didn't speak to anyone. I walked upstairs, shut my door, and stared at the wall. I felt hollow, like someone had scraped out the inside of me. That night, she came into our room, the scholarship letter in her hand. Can you believe it? She whispered. I still can't. I didn't look at her. She sat on her bed and added, I guess it just shows. You never know how strong you are until you have to be. That's when I turned to her. No, I said quietly. It shows how far you'll go when you want to take something that isn't yours. Her smile twitched. What's that supposed to mean? I know, Emma. I saw you copy my essay. I have screenshots. I have timestamps. I know what you did. She didn't even try to deny it. She just looked at me, calm and quiet, and said, No one will believe you. You sound jealous. That was the moment I knew she wasn't broken. She was calculated. She had played the victim, played the orphan, played the sweet cousin who just needed a second chance. And I had been her first step. But she wasn't done yet. She wanted everything. In the following days, I gathered every piece of evidence I had. The files, the photos, the old texts, the saved messages from friends saying, Yeah, Emma said you were kind of falling apart. Or, she told me you weren't serious about the scholarship anyway. She was planting rumors. Lies. Manipulating everyone around me into thinking I was crumbling when I was just trying to hold on. The final week of school approached. Graduation loomed. But I wasn't going to let her walk across that stage and smile like she'd earned any of it. I had a plan. The school allowed student speeches at graduation, one chosen valedictorian and 2 additional speakers. I had been one of them, chosen weeks earlier before Emma submitted her final, Miracle Rise from Tragedy version of events. I rewrote my entire speech. Not the one about dreams and resilience and the future. No, this one was personal. And I wasn't just speaking for myself. I was speaking for every person who's ever been manipulated by someone wearing a mask of innocence. Graduation morning felt surreal. The gym was decorated in blue and silver. Balloons floated near the ceiling. Rows of folding chairs lined the floor where proud parents clutched phones and cried softly into tissues. Teachers stood in clusters, snapping photos, whispering memories. And in the sea of caps and gowns, there she was. Emma. Wearing the same blue robe as me. Walking with the same class. Standing tall like she belonged here. My stomach twisted as I watched her pose for photos with the guidance counselor who had once encouraged me to apply for Merit Scholars. She held a certificate like a trophy, like it was hers to begin with. My parents were beaming. My mom had tears in her eyes. I'm just so proud of both of you, she said, squeezing my shoulder and Emma's in the same breath. You've both grown up so much. I smiled back tightly. They still didn't know. They wouldn't believe it until they saw it. When it was finally time for the speeches, my name was called first. I walked up to the podium, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the applause. I had my printed speech in my hand, the one everyone expected me to read. But that wasn't the speech I gave. I looked out at the crowd, cleared my throat, and began. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ava Fields. I was chosen to give this speech weeks ago, and I wrote something beautiful about hope, perseverance, and the future. But over the past few months, I've learned that sometimes the truth matters more than comfort. So today, I want to talk about truth. The room fell quiet. Even the parents stopped shifting in their seats. I had a cousin move in with us last year after a tragedy. She lost her parents, and my family took her in. I gave her my room, my wardrobe, my friends, and my trust. Emma sat near the front, frozen. She told everyone she was grateful. She told me she looked up to me. But behind the scenes, she was copying my schoolwork, slipping into my friend groups, and eventually, stealing my scholarship essay and passing it off as her own. Gasps rippled through the audience. I kept going. I know this sounds unbelievable, maybe even cruel to bring up today, but I have proof. Screenshots, dated documents, copies of both our essays, and I've submitted them to the scholarship committee for review. Emma shot up from her seat. That's a lie, she cried out, face flushed red. I looked directly at her. I wish it was. Teachers looked around nervously. The principal stepped toward the stage, unsure whether to intervene. But I wasn't done. It's not just about the scholarship, I continued. It's about knowing who you are when everything you've worked for is taken from you. When someone smiles in your face while cutting you down behind your back. It's about standing up, even when you're scared no one will believe you. I took a breath. And I know there are people in this room who've been through something similar. Maybe not this exact story, but something close. Someone using your kindness as leverage. Someone making you feel small so they can feel big. If that's you, this speech is for you. There was silence when I finished. No applause. Just shock. Until one person started clapping. Then another. And another. Until suddenly, the whole gym erupted in cheers. People stood up. Some even cried. I walked off the stage, knees trembling, but heart steady. Emma had left her seat. I saw her in the hallway, arguing with one of the school counselors. Her face was twisted in panic, not grief. Her mask had finally cracked. After the ceremony, things happened fast. The scholarship committee reached out to me the very next morning. They'd reviewed the evidence. They were deeply concerned. A few days later, I got the official letter. After investigation, we have determined that your original work was plagiarized and misrepresented by another applicant. The scholarship is rightfully awarded to you, effective immediately. It felt like air returned to my lungs for the first time in weeks. But the fallout didn't stop there. Emma was called into a disciplinary hearing with the school board. The truth spread quickly. Parents, teachers, students, everyone who once saw her as the perfect picture of resilience now looked at her differently. She withdrew her college acceptance. Moved out of our house 2 weeks later. She didn't say goodbye. My parents were stunned. At first, they struggled to accept it. My mom apologized again and again, said she didn't want to believe someone could be so cruel while smiling so sweetly. But deep down, I think they always knew something was off. It's just easier to love the version of someone they want to believe in. As for me, I learned something more valuable than any scholarship. I learned that kindness without boundaries is a recipe for destruction. That not everyone deserves access to your heart. That sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever do is protect yourself from the people you love the most. And I learned to stop apologizing for speaking the truth. Because the truth, it might make people uncomfortable. It might shatter illusions. But it sets you free. The summer after graduation felt like stepping into a new world, one where I didn't have to look over my shoulder anymore. One where the walls I'd built were not for shutting people out, but for keeping my peace in. I got the scholarship officially transferred to my name, and my admission to Columbia University, something I thought might be snatched away from me, was confirmed. It felt like my life was finally mine again. But even in all the relief, I couldn't shake the grief. Not the grief of losing Emma. That relationship had been one-sided from the start, even if I didn't want to admit it. No, what hurt more was realizing that someone I called family could look me in the eye, laugh at my jokes, borrow my clothes, cry on my shoulder, and still be plotting to erase me. It made me question everything. Was she ever really sad? Was anything real? About a month after she moved out, Emma reached out. Not through a call, or even a text. She mailed me a letter. The envelope was pale blue, like the robe we wore at graduation. Inside was a handwritten note in slanted, messy ink. Ava, I don't know how to say sorry for what I did because it won't fix anything. I thought if I could just be you, just a little, I'd finally feel worthy of something. I didn't know how to live in a world where I wasn't someone's daughter anymore. I was so angry at how unfair life was, and you seem to have everything. But I understand now that I crossed a line I can never uncross. I hope you live a full life, even if I'm not in it. I'm sorry. I stared at the letter for a long time. Part of me wanted to rip it up. Another part of me wanted to cry for the girl who was drowning and decided the only way to breathe was to steal someone else's air. But mostly, I just felt done. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just done carrying what wasn't mine to carry. I never wrote back. I folded the letter, tucked it into the back of my journal, and let that chapter of my life close, quietly, finally. College was a breath of fresh air. New people. New city. A blank slate. It was hard at first, trusting anyone. I second-guessed every smile, every compliment. Wondered if they had motives the way Emma did. But over time, I met people who showed up for me, not because they wanted something, but because they saw me. The real me. One night during sophomore year, I was helping a friend with her art portfolio. We were lying on the dorm floor, our laptops open, music humming in the background. She turned to me and asked casually, "Do you ever miss your cousin?" The question hit like a surprise gust of wind. I hadn't thought about Emma in months. Not really, I said honestly. But I missed the version of her I thought was real. She nodded, like she understood. And maybe she did. We all have someone like that. Someone who wore a mask so well we forgot to question it. As the years passed, I carried the lesson Emma taught me, not in bitterness, but in wisdom. I learned that grief doesn't give someone the right to ruin others. That love should never be weaponized. That being kind doesn't mean being blind. I learned to speak up faster, to draw clearer boundaries, to protect what I've built. Because I am not anyone's backup plan. I am not a shadow. I am not a version of someone else's dream. I am mine. 4 years later, I was asked to give a speech at a leadership conference for high school seniors. I stood on a big stage with bright lights and a buzzing crowd. And just like at graduation, I began with a story. Not naming names, not spilling every detail, but telling the truth. My truth. And afterward, a girl came up to me, probably 16, eyes wide and glassy. She said, "Thank you. I thought I was the only one." I smiled and said, "You're not. And you never were." So here's what I'll leave you with. There will be people who enter your life wearing the face of love but move like betrayal. They will borrow your light until you're dim and then accuse you of being bitter. But the people who are meant to stay, the real ones, they won't compete with your shine. They'll help you grow it. So trust your gut. Speak your truth. And never, ever apologize for protecting your peace. Because your story, your real story, it's worth fighting for. And it's yours alone.